Hi everybody, it's me. I wanted to talk about grief today. It's on my mind a lot because it's coming up to 3 years since I lost my dad, and grief doesn't respect time, doesn't respect it, and grief is very difficult for people to empathise with if they haven't been through it, and people often don't know what to say. And to be honest, very often there isn't that much you can say. You can't say it's going to be okay. You can't take the pain away. You can't take the ache away. You can't take the loss away. You can just be there for somebody. And sometimes that means that you just have to sit in a really uncomfortable place with them because grief isn't particularly comfortable. And the thing about grief is it's difficult to articulate, and it's very personal, and people feel it very, very differently. I think one of the consistent things that probably everybody shares with grief is the weight of grief. Grief is actually quite a heavy load that you walk around with. And I think that's why it's important to do stuff like this. Because I think by showing people how grief can look and how it can feel, it might help them to be able to connect with people, to support them and to be there and just help them carry that load, because it's not easy, and I'm sure that everybody will have their own memories and thoughts, and it's quite perverse because today all I can think about is that last 48 hours with my dad. It's 48 hours from hell, really. It's 48 hours from fucking hell. And that last day, and he couldn't talk. He could just about squeeze my hand because you can hear right up till the moment you can go, but he couldn't even talk, and it was hellish. And the call when it came to say gone, 10 goddamn minutes after I'd left, and the scream inside of you that's saying no, I don't have the words to describe it, and as perverse as it sounds, this is actually, in a lot of ways, quite comforting. Because as horrible as it was, he was here and he was alive. And that sounds awful, really, because he was in so much pain. But it is so hard. It is so hard to let people go, particularly when it comes so quickly. Yes, he'd had cancer for a while, but 3-4 days earlier, he'd been my compos mentis dad, and 3 or 4 days later, he's a shell of a man, and he can't talk, and he's in pain, and it's shit. It is really shit, but it is an uncomfortable truth, and this is part of life. And there's a lot of people walking around with the weight of grief on their own, and they don't know how to reach out and connect with it. And other people who don't have that weight don't know how to reach out to them and connect. And I'm hoping this might help, because actually connection, it's just really about sitting in this uncomfortable space with the person that still has the very raw grief, the weight of that grief that they carry. And I really think that's the connection. Not to try and make it better, not to say it's okay, not to try and stop their tears, but just to sit with them in that uncomfortable space. And I think that we need to get better at doing that. And it's not just grief, is it? It's depression, it's the menopause, it's the addiction, it's basically all of the really difficult, crappy stuff in life that we actually spend most of our life trying to avoid. Well, it's not avoidable. Grief will get you in the end. It is not avoidable. So we better learn to sit together and perhaps share the load. So hoping that helps, and hoping that enables somebody somewhere to be able to share their load. And just to be able to share their load and to be able to carry it, because that's what you need to do. Okay, take care, bye.